Hi there, I'm Zeek. I'm the only child of a single mom who owns a failing diner. I do my best at helping my mom out, but being poor was tough on both of us. I could hardly focus on my studies and I barely had any friends. Mom tried to make me quit the diner so I could concentrate on getting into a good college, but I felt a responsibility. She'd always worked so hard for me, and I didn't want to let her down when she needed me most. Pete and Joe were my best friends, and they were always supportive of us. They'd always hang out at the diner and help out. They would even bring their entire families on weekends to help ourselves. But then, one day, the rest of the school found out that I was working as a waiter, and I never heard the end of it. They made fun of my mom's diner. They called it dilapidated, and they said my mom had boomer energy. The kids at school review bombed us on Yelp and gave us 1 stars. One day, all the cool kids came just to laugh at me and to return their finished plates back to the kitchen, demanding a full refund. I was the most embarrassed when my crush came up to me. "This is what I think of waiters." Tyra then dumped a full glass of chocolate milkshake on my head. She went back to their table and they all high-fived her. On that same table was Chris Henderson, star quarterback and Gilder High's most popular student. He snapped his fingers at me and whistled as if I was a dog. He then made me exchange his burger 3 times, changing his mind about the pickles every single time. It was by the 3rd time that I decided to give him a burger without the pickles, and I put a jar of pickles right next to his plate so he couldn't change his mind again. He was not impressed. Instead, he demanded to speak to the manager, which was me. "I demand a full refund. I waited 30 minutes for this burger." "You got your burger after 5, but you chose to send it back for no reason."
"Are you arguing with me? Do you not know that the customer is always right?"
I guess talking back only made it worse, and from that day on, Chris and his friends came back to the diner just to make trouble. My friends stopped coming, and they started getting embarrassed about hanging out with me. Suddenly, they were all chilling with Chris and his gang. Instead of hanging at the diner, they all started going to the water park that Chris's dad owned. Every now and then, Chris would round up his minions and they'd come to trash our place. One night on Halloween, they egged the whole place and wrapped everything in TP. I spent hours just trying to depaper the frozen burger patties and the ketchup dispensers. That was when my mom decided to close down. We simply couldn't keep up with the added costs of property damages, not to mention, we kept losing business because of all the trouble Chris put us through. We tried to call the cops, but they always ignored us because Chris and his dad were rich. And it turned out the more money you had, the more untouchable you were. For months, I couldn't find another job. I had to swallow my pride and work for Chris's dad. And boy, did Chris love that. He treated me like I was his own personal servant. He made me get him food, clean his car, take his badly behaved dogs for walks. When he and his crew would hang out at the water park, he made me serve them drinks and fan them with a huge leaf, as if they were pharaohs. One day, they were lounging under the sun, and we heard a commotion break out near the fences. The leaves began to rustle, and we thought some bear had gotten lost in the forest, until a very pretty girl burst out of the bushes and landed next to me. Her face pleaded for help, and I grabbed her and helped her up. "Please, help. I was only trying to get away from the paparazzi, so I took a shortcut. I thought it'd lead me back to the road, but then they saw me." "What saw you?" "Those!" Tyra gasped. Chris squealed like a girl. There were 10 sets of angry eyes staring at us through the bushes. I grabbed the lost girl and tried to slowly back away, but the wild dogs sprang out, and in the blink of an eye, we were surrounded. They started circling us. "Nobody run, okay? No sudden movements or they'll pounce at you. You can't outrun them." I grabbed the only thing I could, 2 beach umbrellas. I waved them above my head and tried my best to look larger and scarier than I was, but it didn't work. If anything, the dogs looked even more determined. One of them let out a menacing growl, and Chris lost all composure. He grabbed Tyra and used her like a shield. He yelped and stumbled backwards, and then he ran. "Mommy! Mom, help!" When their leader bailed, so did Tyra, Pete, and Joe. It was the worst thing they could have done, because as soon as the dogs saw them run, they bolted after them. I grabbed the lost girl's arm and told her to stay still. There was one dog left, and it was eyeing us like we were dinner. One last time, I puffed up my chest and spoke in the deepest voice I could manage while flailing my arms.
Go! Get out of here!
For a second, it looked like the dog was gonna jump at me, and then it gave a small whine and ran off to find its pack. The bushes started rustling again, and this time I was ready to defend the lost girl. I took her in my arms, but then, instead of wild animals, people who were carrying cameras stumbled out of the forest. As soon as they saw me and the lost girl in an embrace, they started taking photos.
Kendall, over here! Kendall, who's the mystery boo?
I looked down, and in the flashing lights, I finally recognized who she was. It was Kendall Jenner, one of the most famous actresses of our generation. And what was she doing there in my arms? I found my shocked face plastered on every tabloid magazine's front page. Photos of me were everywhere online. News sites, blogs, Finstagram, Twitter, and even FriendFace. People were calling me Kendall's mystery man. Kendall's manager showed up on my doorstep in the middle of the night some days later with a massive grin on his face.
You wanna be famous?
No?
Okay, great, nice talk. Well, anyway, this whole thing, it's gonna be a great boost for Kendall's popularity, and if Kendall's popularity goes up, she gets money, and if she gets money, I get rich. So, you're doing this, and you'll get paid $10,000 a day. How's that sound?
Wait, what am I doing?
Pretending to be Kendall's boyfriend, of course. The hot boyfriend who rescued her from a pack of feral dogs.
10,000 a day? At first, it was just pretend. The manager sold the story that after being rescued, Kendall and I fell in love instantly. And it made for a fairy tale-like read. I didn't mind. I was getting paid. But as the days turned into months, I started realizing that I was actually falling for her. For real. The more pretend dates we went on, the more I found myself wishing the pretending was the part that wasn't real. After the news had died down and nobody was interested in our relationship anymore, I was finally able to make enough money to make my mom's dream come true. And when a fancy restaurant popped up where our diner used to be, I saw some of the people who once tormented us turn up to the grand opening. I saw Chris talking to some girls who were from out of town, and he was boasting about the time he chased away a pack of rabid dogs at the water park. The girls were giggling and were almost convinced by his lies. If I remember correctly, it was you who got chased away. Didn't you scream for your mom and needed to have your diapers changed? Okay, I exaggerated about the diapers, but come on, he deserved it.
Oh, it's you. Surprised to see you're here. What, they hired you as a waiter? Is this the level of people they hire to work here? I'm not very optimistic about the food then. You couldn't even keep your job at the water park.
Before Chris could bore us with even more of his tired insults, a crowd of screaming girls and boys flooded the restaurant. Kendall had just gotten out of her signature pink limo, and they were clamoring over her, trying to get her to give them autographs. And when Tyra saw who it was, she jumped up and down. "Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan!" Kendall went straight for me and planted a huge kiss on my lips. That was when the fans saw me and recognized who I was. The teenage screaming intensified. Now they were asking me for selfies too. "Kendall, let me borrow your boyfriend. I just want one kiss from him, Kendall." Chris and Tyra could not have been more shocked. And then, stupid as they were, they just then realized that the restaurant was mine, seeing as my name was up in lights. "Please, oh my God, I'm such a huge fan. I'll do anything. Please, can you shout out my Finsta? I'll gain so many followers. I promise, I'll do anything." Anything? Kendall winked at me. Break up with Chris then. Tyra blocked Chris on everything right then and there. She even sent him a voice note telling him that she was breaking up with him, and he was right in front of her. I got a huge belly laugh out of that. Oh no, it seems Kendall and I have changed our minds. You're not getting what you want, Tyra. You, Chris, Pete, and Joe, you're all banned from my restaurant for life. But I broke up with my boyfriend. Tough cookie. The fans began to swarm around us, and they pushed the people from my old life away. It was a beautiful moment, watching them fade into insignificance like that. As the people screamed our names, Kendall and I shared a kiss that was captured by 100 fans on their phones.